You're watching the Three and You Giant Fans podcast brought to you by Scott, Giant, Mike, and Cardone. We're sponsored by Manscaped.com. Use code AGREYMAN to get a 20% discount and free shipping. And download our audio podcast at Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts from.
So the big news today, that's the Giants locking down Andrew Thomas for 5 years, $16 million signing bonus, $117.5 million total, and the most guaranteed money ever for an offensive lineman, $67 million guaranteed. So in the offseason, Joe Shane looking like a boss here. He's re-signed Thomas, he's re-signed Jones, and he played hardball with Barkley and still gave Barkley his contract. We'll get into that in a little bit. But we are the Three Angry Giant fans. We're actually two Angry Giant fans and one Jet fan because Cardone is on. He's actually conducting business tonight. He's adulting. So this is your host, Scott and Giant Mike with Jets fan Novak. How you guys been doing?
Good, good. Hope you guys are well.
Yeah, ready to get this season going. Let's do this.
Camp started for everyone now, I think, at least for our group.
We're all rolling.
We're all rolling. So this is the camp preview edition, and then we'll start talking a little bit about the preseason, sort of what's happened in the last couple weeks. There's been quite a few signings, quite a bit of contract information, both on the Giants and Jets side. But before we get into it, let's give a shout out to a listener from our last podcast. So, hello, Hickory Hills, Illinois. It's a suburb of Chicago, but what's interesting about Hickory Hills, it actually started as the Hickory Hills Country Club, and then the town got incorporated after the country club. The country club became the town.
Bad. We've learned a lot of good stuff about naming and cities from your segment here, but yeah, that's a great one.
It would be a great story if we could have a town called Bushwood. That'd be nice.
Oh, Bushwood. Bushwood, Pennsylvania. So yeah.
That must be some country club. They're just like, screw it, man. It's the town. Where's this? The town.
The country club was founded in 1917, and the town was not incorporated until 1951. So have a round of golf and then go to the mayor's office. City Hall.
Why not?
Hickory Hills. I like it.
Hickory Hills, Illinois. So we appreciate all our viewers. We've had a steady stream of downloads coming, even though we've been in the off season. So this is season 4 of the Three Angry Giant fans. And from this point forward, we're going to have regular episodes kicking off. Next week, I was just telling the guys, we're going to do a compilation, sort of the best of Pet Peeves. But then after that, we're going to be hot and heavy getting into preseason games, camp discussion. Of course, we're always going to have the Pet Peeves up there as well. So big news from the Giants side. Andrew Thomas signed. Barkley signed. And Barkley's sign is a little bit confusing. So, he signed the tag, or he's playing under the tag. And I always thought, in the way it was presented, sort of like you can't negotiate after that. What I did not realize is that you can negotiate. You just can't negotiate a multi-year deal. You can just negotiate a single-year deal. And the reason this is so uncommon is that no one has actually done this since Edgerrin James. So think about how far back that's been. And really, I think it's a good move. I mean, they gave Barkley a little bit more. He can earn a little bit more in incentives than playing under the tag, but it sort of keeps peace in the locker room. It keeps your most dynamic offensive player happy, and now he's going to report for camp. Thoughts on the signing, Mike?
Yeah, you hope it keeps peace in the locker room, but these things you never know. I'm so bad at the off-season stuff. I almost said good. I'm so bad at the off-season stuff and contracts. I don't follow that very often, but this seems to me like Barkley got some bad advice, and I had heard that from several sources as these negotiations went on, and this was almost like the Giants allowing him to save face almost. This was a contract that was offered to say, hey, look, accept this. You're basically playing under the franchise tag. We think you're going to do well, and we'll do this again next year. And to the Giants' credit, I mean, there's a lot to that. I mean, can he stay healthy another year? If he doesn't, Shane looks like a genius on pulling off this contract. But if he does, great, and that'll be 2 healthy years back to back, and then maybe you go ahead and sign him up long term. But the one thing I do take a little exception to is, the people who are complaining about Jones and Thomas getting these big contracts, but Barkley getting a small one because Barkley's the most valuable player of the team. Well, I don't know. I don't know if that's true. Barkley's the most talented player on the Giants, but without a quarterback, you could almost argue that almost any serviceable and reasonable quarterback is the most valuable player on your team if he can deliver wins. And your quarterback can't do anything without a left tackle, as we know very well. I kind of see this as Shane playing this really smart, playing the market, knowing the running back market, locking up a left tackle. We know Thomas is awesome because we pay attention. I don't think everyone around the league right now knows who Andrew Thomas is and what he's been doing the last year and a half here. So locking him up now, I think is a great move, locking him up for 5 years. But I didn't mean to go further than your question asked there. That's my take on that.
No, that's good. What I take away from all of this is, especially coming off the Gettleman era, I just feel like Shane is a professional GM doing reasonable things and making moves that the average fan will look at and say, we're running our team like an NFL franchise again. So,
yeah. My take on this from an outsider's perspective, what is he, like 35% of the offense or something? He's a lot. And it just goes to show you how important a great agent is, right? And I agree with you, Scott. You said it earlier. He had to have gotten some bad advice. If he had taken the 2-year deal, right? Am I right in saying that he would have gotten $23 million?
Yep.
Right? Wasn't that the deal? So, okay, let's call it 11, what is that? 11 and a half each year or something. So he's missed out on money. Now, if he blows out his knee, which is very possible, right? Now he goes into next year and he's not making that money in 24. So an agent should know what's going to happen if we turn down this 2-year deal. What's the plan B? I don't think he had a great plan B here. Now, I agree that he saved face. I think the Giants did him a solid by giving him a little more money, but kudos to them. they played this thing incredibly well, and that all that anyone's talking about is the running back market, and that's 100% correct. This is going to be interesting to see how this plays out from here on, with all of these dynamic running backs coming out of college, playing great for 2 years and getting no money. So I'm going to be very curious to see how this works, because we have Breece Hall. This is going to be me in 2 years.
Yeah. So I was going to actually say that, Novak. What is your take on the whole concept of positional value with running backs? You made a great point about having Breece Hall, but you guys just signed Delvin Cook. So, you're basically having insurance for a promising young back in Breece Hall, but Delvin Cook's going to want to have some playing time too. So what's your take on the positional value of running backs as a whole, the way the trend is going?
Well, it's funny you say that, because I think the Jets are the real reason this is happening, because of Le'Veon Bell. I think that they signed him to that massive deal. He stunk. He had no tread left on his tires. He was a terrible signing. And I think that set back the position years because of him. There's been others too. Sean Alexander. You can go down the list of guys that you overpaid with a lot of tread on their tires, and they just didn't produce once they got that money. It's, from a pure business standpoint, it's the right thing to do, right? If you have a decent offensive line, like Mike, you preach and have been preaching for years. Now, I'm not saying you can throw anyone back there. I think that's not fair to Barkley and these other talented running backs, but you can get by, right? If you have a decent quarterback and other weapons around him with a serviceable running back, if your line can protect. So I just think it's the right way to go. I think these teams, and I think running backs are screwed for years.
Yeah, I agree. The running backs are in a tough spot. Backs are in a tough spot. It's a bad year. It's going to be a bad couple of years to be a stud running back coming out of college.
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah. All right. I worry about the positional value of running backs. Now, how many young kids that are good running backs are going to try and switch to wide receiver? And does that lessen the running back pool? Or is this a trend that maybe reverses itself in 5 years? Or is there a way the NFL can reverse it by, maybe even having a different cap for running backs or something like that. I don't know how they can maneuver that.
Or are you going to see more Deebo Samuels, right? Players that he can play wide receiver. He's lines up in the backfield. I mean, you're going to see more of that. And then you can say, well, I'm actually a wide receiver. I want wide receiver. Who knows what's going to happen?
Yeah. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah. Yep.
So we did have several moves for the Giants, several moves for the Jets as well. But on the Giants side, the project that was known as Ellerson Smith, defensive end, he was waived injured, and I believe the guy was injured his entire tenure with the New York Giants. He was a raw athlete coming out of school and never really panned out. They also cut cornerback Leonard Johnson and defensive back Trenton Thompson, and they signed a defensive end, Tashawn Bauer, who I think is probably, replacing that roster spot of Ellerson Smith. And then two names that people will recognize that they signed. They signed running back James Robinson, who many may remember from the Jaguars. I think he was with the Bills for a little bit last year. Was he with the Jets too, Novak?
He didn't play, but he was on the Jets. They traded him for like a 5th round choice when Breece Hall went down with his ACL.
Yeah. And then the Giants signed Cole Beasley, who had a productive, 2 years ago, the guy was productive as heck. And then we know that he got in a little bit of a controversy for not wanting to take the vaccinations. And maybe he'll be looked at as in a different light now that the COVID era is over.
Yeah, he's a genius now.
But he is on the roster giving depth at the wide receiver position. Giants are very deep at wide receiver right now. And then just before we came on the air, they signed Kevin Atkins, a defensive tackle, most recently played in the XFL. So, again, another depth signing more than anything else. I didn't even watch it. You know what's funny? I watched a little bit of a USFL championship game and didn't recognize any players. The only thing I recognized was I think one of the coaches I knew, and that was about it. And I didn't watch any minutes of the XFL. Do you guys watch any of the ancillary leagues that were going on?
Absolutely not.
No, I didn't. I saw, maybe this wasn't even this year, but I saw Jeff Fisher grace my TV when I was flipping the channels around. Was that an arena league even? I don't know what that was.
It could have been.
It's good to see him though. I always like that dude.
So the other big news for the Giants was Jared Davis, who was expected to be their starting middle linebacker, went on IR with a knee injury, and he's going to miss the year. On the Jets side, Novak, big news that we haven't talked about since the last pod. Hard Knocks.
Oh.
From a fan perspective, you gotta love the Hard Knocks. You gotta love the attention, right?
I am so actually. As you know, I'm about as big a Jets fan as you can get. I am so sick of them already, and the season hasn't even started. And I got to watch these guys on Hard Knocks. Now, I actually, on all seriousness, I am pissed that they got picked to do this, and it's 100% because of the dick. That's the only reason that they are on Hard Knocks. This guy, look, he's my quarterback, but I'm already tired of him. I want him to do well. Obviously, I'm gonna get behind him. I'm gonna embrace this whole thing. But he's the reason we're on Hard Knocks. I think it's bad. We don't need this distraction. They're already a distraction with him and all this shit going on with Aaron Rodgers. I don't know. To me, they've already done it. Why can't the Patriots do it? Because what are they afraid of Bill Belichick? I know there's rules I think you have to not have made the playoffs for 2 years, or there's some stupid rule like that. Make someone else do it. We've done it already. There's 32 teams.
Yeah, I've seen on Giant message boards, fans really want the Giants to be on Hard Knocks. And first off, I have to explain to them, there's two teams that basically have an unwritten rule with the NFL that I know of, the Giants and the Steelers. And they will not go on Hard Knocks unless they ask to be on Hard Knocks. Basically, the NFL has given them some grace period of not having to be on Hard Knocks. And I love it. I don't want to see my team on Hard Knocks.
No.
I don't want the distractions. I don't want the fakeness, that goes along. You gotta follow the Turk into the room as he's cutting people. This guy's got a job to do. Last thing he wants to do is have a camera in his face, and the last thing you want to do as you're getting fired is have a camera in your face. It's ridiculous.
Everything we always talk about that we don't like about this new NFL and the entertainment it's become is all embodied in Hard Knocks. And I feel for you, Novak. I would not want my team anywhere near that dumpster fire. I don't know what I would do if I found out the Giants were going to be on there. I wouldn't watch. I'd be tempted to watch probably, but I don't think I'd watch. I just don't want to feed into that. And just knowing, and you already know this, all the stories that are going to come out and hit Twitter that have no basis in reality
None.
because they were edited to show you something for the purpose of creating drama that's not there. I feel for you, man. I do.
If they had wanted to do this with Crazy Eyes Gase, that'd be fine because they sucked and I didn't care.
Yeah.
But they're actually relevant for the first time in 13 years, and we got to be on Hard Knocks.
Yeah.
Like, I would have been fine over the last 10 years. I'm not kidding. Fine, because they suck. I don't care.
It wouldn't have mattered. Yeah.
It wouldn't have mattered. Now it matters. They're actually, they have a good team, and this is what they got to have to deal with out of training camp. Now, the one thing they did do, I don't know if you heard this, but they will not allow Hard Knocks to film them cutting players. That was one of the rules that they had. So I appreciate that. However, I would rather them film cutting some loser that, gets cut in day 2 than have the cameras on Aaron Rodgers and Garrett Wilson for 24 hours. Like, that's the thing. Like, I get why they did that, but I would rather have that be on film than the other stuff with the important players that I don't want out there making potentially bad statements or doing something stupid.
Nothing good can come of it.
No.
There's nothing that's going to do to enhance your team's chances to win anything. All that can happen is bad things. The best you can hope for is nothing.
Correct. I mean, I hope they're a total bore, which they have been for years, and now they're not. So I don't know. I mean, they were on in 2010 with Rex Ryan. He was interesting. I did watch that, but I do think they're going to be fairly boring. I mean, other than Rodgers, there's not a whole lot of personality with these guys, which I like. I don't want Odell Beckham. I don't want all these guys making crazy statements, doing stupid things off the field.
Yep.
So fine. So good, NFL. I hope they are bored, and I hope the ratings are in the tank.
Yeah, I didn't know the thing about them not showing them cut people. I remember way back when the Ravens were on, and they'd follow the guy, they'd show him shuffling down the hallway, knocking on the door, and hey, grab your playbook, come with me. And the guy knows what's going on. It's a very awkward view. I mean, the coach comes in, he goes, "Hey, we love what you've been doing. You got a bright future ahead of you." Unfortunately, we're going in a different direction.
Yeah.
And if you think, how pathetic is that? This is a guy that probably worked his whole life. This is the saddest moment of his whole life, and it's going to be broadcast to the country?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. How stupid is that?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I got to give Rodgers credit. I don't know where he fitted in between all the concerts he's been attending this summer and all the public appearances he's been doing, whether it's Taylor Swift or Luke Combs, whoever. But Rodgers just took a $35 million pay cut. He signed for 2 years, $75 million guaranteed. But even though it's $75 million guaranteed, he had $110 million on his old deal. Thoughts on that, Novak?
I mean, I don't want to get into pet peeves, but it's going to be around this. So I'm giving a little heads up. I don't understand how it all works. They're just kicking the can down the road, and they're going to have to deal with this next year. He's going to be on the books at some point. But the good thing about this was it shows me he's going to be here for more than a year. I was worried this was going to be a one and done. And it's clear to me that if he's making the majority of his money next year, he's not going to walk away next year. So he's coming back. And while he's a distraction, I can't stand the guy. He's good. You can't deny the fact that he still has it left. And I think he's going to be good for the team. So fine. He's going to be here for 2 years. Great. But now we're going to have to deal with this next year, and we'll see how it goes. But I can't worry about that. I just want to get the season started, get this team underway. Let's see what we can do.
He is a real conundrum for Scott, man. He is. It's so funny. Like the first words out of his mouth tonight were, "I'm so sick of him already." And then we go a little bit further. He's like, "What this means to me is he'll be here next year, and that's good news." And then in the same breath, I hate him. But
Well, look,
That's
you guys
great.
know you got. That's how it has to be, right? No
Yep,
one likes
yep.
the guy. I mean, I've he's been on these events and he was on the golf tournament and all of that, and he's been interviewed and he's been fine. He's embraced New York and all of that. A little bit too much for my taste, but at least we're not dealing with Zach Wilson and hooking up with his mom's friends and everything else. It's better than the alternative. I'll say that.
I think the way exposure is nowadays, so people hate on everything. I don't know if you guys saw last week or maybe it was 2 weeks ago in the celebrity golf tournament where Stephen Curry hit a hole in one. And he went, running all the way down to the green, pumping his fist, just basically sprinting down there. And there are people they're like, I'm so tired of seeing Curry. I'm so tired of seeing him all over the place. It's like, well, dude's having fun. He hit a hole. I've never hit a hole in one. Come on.
That was great. That was great. The reaction like that, running down the fairway, it was fantastic.
Yeah. People just have to have fun sometimes. Just
exactly.
Everyone gets outraged over anything, but
anything.
People
are just angry fans.
Yeah. I'm in my air conditioned house, so I'm not in the 100-degree heat that everyone's been bitching about.
I don't like anything. I hate it.
This is where we need Cardone, because then he would probably be going off right about now about Rodgers. But
well, I know one thing to go off.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say one thing I wanted to go off about was I was watching the thing about, I think it was where the players are ranked, and Justin Fields was ranked 20 spots higher than Trevor Lawrence.
Stop it.
No,
where did you see this?
It was like I think it's the NFL Network. I think Justin Fields like the number 65th ranked player, and Lawrence is like number 85. It was ridiculous.
20 spots ahead of Trevor Lawrence.
One guy actually has a playoff win under his belt. The other guy runs fast.
The other guy is capable of performing the duties of his position. What the hell?
How about asking 32 general managers, who would you rather have, Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence? And let that be the answer.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you 32 would say Trevor Lawrence.
That's how we would determine. Yeah. If they could be anonymous, even the Bears quarterback would be like, yeah, or the Bears GM. Yeah, I'll take Trevor.
Ask Justin Fields, would you rather be yourself or Trevor Lawrence? He's going to say Trevor Lawrence.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Justin
Mike.
Fields,
Didn't mean to cut you up.
He's just got to be like, he's got to be sitting there like, I have these people all snowed. I can't believe it. How much worse can I play? How many more games can I lose? I mean, they're losing games like 11-6, and Justin Fields has 5 completions for 60 yards. Does anyone think if he had 12 completions out of 20 passes for 184 yards and a touchdown that maybe they win that 11-6 game? I never mind. I'm not doing this. I'm not doing it.
Sorry, I cut you off early. You probably were on
I
don't
even remember what I was saying. I'm so Justin Fields fired up right now. I can't even think straight.
So, Novak, any other Jets off-season news you wanted to let us know?
Well, I think the big thing for me going into the offseason, I wanted Quinnen Williams re-signed. And they did that. They gave him a massive contract. And the Jets historically do not sign. They do not sign their draft picks. They either trade them or they fail and they're out of the league. So they needed to sign him to show their younger players that they actually do sign their draft picks, because they haven't in years. I think he's the first one since like Muhammad Wilkerson or something crazy like that got an extension. Or there was, I don't know if that's the person, but there was it's been like 7 years or something like that. So it was important. And plus that defensive line is going to be fantastic this year. I mean, I'm very excited about what they're going to do. And then you throw in, and they haven't made that many transactions in the offseason, so I don't really, they've not done anything big, so fine. They're pretty well set up. They added to their defense in the linebacking core. They added a couple offensive linemen, which has been good. They've got a lot of depth there. They added the guy from Washington, Schweiter, as the center. Look, they've made very smart additions to the roster in a lot of different positions, and they re-signed the guys they needed to. And of course, they got the dick, which is all that really matters.
You know,
A shrewd offseason.
that did vault the Jets so up in everyone's like frame of mind from being an also ran team to now being a contender. I've heard the Jets listed as possibly favorites in the AFC East. So it's you know.
I mean, how many teams can say they have the offensive and defensive rookie of the year on their team and a Hall of Fame quarterback? There's not many, right? So, and Breece Hall would have been the offensive rookie of the year had he not torn his ACL. So, and they're stacked on their defensive line, which I love that defensive line. So I'm not saying they're going to the Super Bowl. I'm not saying they're winning the division, but they are going to be good.
It's an interesting dynamic because, you know, you're starting to hear rumblings about the Patriots now. You know, if they don't have a good year, is Belichick on the hot seat, or is he going to be, you know, is Kraft going to go in a different direction? All these sort of variables are happening, and you got the Dolphins and the Jets being talked as being contenders with the Bills, and sort of the Patriots are the afterthought, which is weird compared to the last, you know, 2 decades, really.
Yeah, haven't been here in a while, but I'm sort of in agreement with people saying that. I mean, I think the Patriots are cooked. Now, the one thing I think they could be the worst team in football, actually, but the one thing I disagree with adamantly is that their performance last year or this year should get Bill Belichick fired. I understand if you want to start fresh with a new direction and, you know, give Belichick a send off, and you better thank him for everything and build him a statue and, you know, whatever else you got to do there. But that's Bill Belichick should be able to coach the New England Patriots for as long as he would like, no matter what's happening on the field. You know, if the most overhyped athlete wasn't our buddy Justin Fields, it might be Mac Jones, who's just god awful. You know, he is Zach Wilson on a better team, or not last year, of course, Scott, don't get me wrong, but he's got more structure around him than Zach has had. They don't let him take a single chance in a game. They don't let him throw the ball more than 5 yards. I mean, there are a number of quarterbacks who could be doing for the Patriots what Mac Jones has been doing right now. So they're bad. There's not a lot Belichick could do. If Belichick gets 3 wins out of them or 5 wins, then another coach would have gotten 1 or 2. So that's my take on the Patriots. I think they're a pretty bad football team right now.
I would agree. And, you know, that there's that narrative right now, you know, what would Belichick have won without Tom Brady? I mean, sure, I guess you could agree to that, some of that, but don't forget all the times that he was running Troy Brown out at quarterback. You know, he was taking guys from West Alabama and starting them at safety and making, you know, Super Bowl heroic plays. So it's, yes, Tom Brady was a big part of that, but it's not like they were stacked at position after position. They were, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I totally agree with you, Mike. It's a very good point. That's kind of crazy if people start saying that.
I mean, it's insane. I mean, you guys and people listening to this podcast know that I also felt Tom Coughlin should have been able to write his own check with the Giants. So I'm pretty sympathetic toward a quarterback or a coach even winning 2, you know, much less 7 or whatever it was Belichick won. So, I mean, that's crazy to me that you would even consider letting Bill Belichick go if he doesn't want to. That's off the and I listen, I know people are simplistic. This is going to be part of my pet peeve tonight as well. And they think, oh, you know, Brady went somewhere else and won. Well, Brady went from a team on the decline to a stacked football team and won. Mm-hmm. That's what happened. And let's also not forget that when Bill Belichick won the first and maybe even the second of the Super Bowls, Tom Brady wasn't Tom Brady yet.
No.
He was. He just wasn't. I mean, that was. People can't sort of put the genie back in the bottle and go back to the Patriots Super Bowl over the Rams. And what a huge upset that was, and what a huge deal it was. And the fact that, you know, the Patriots get the ball back like inside their own 20 with 1:40 left or whatever they had. Cardone and I always talk about this. Back then, the drive to win the game didn't happen that often. It wasn't that big a deal. And Madden and Mike Hisman and 1,000 other people were going, take a knee. You've got a quarterback who can't do this. Take a knee. And Belichick said, "Nah, let's go win this game." And they did. I mean, there's not a lot of coaches making that call.
Mm-mm.
Tom Brady throws an interception there, a sack fumble, and they lose the Super Bowl when they could have taken it to overtime. He's going to get roasted. What are you doing dropping Brady back in that situation? Oh, are you kidding me? So, yeah, take it easy. Tom Brady, listen, from Michigan. I respect the hell out of him. I love his game. I don't deny he's the greatest football player ever. None of that. But I think Belichick and Brady might have each been half as successful if they had met each other. Who knows if Brady even gets a chance on another team, actually.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, think about the fact. So Bledsoe gets hurt, comes back, and he's stuck with the 7th or 6th round draft choice instead of the guy making millions of dollars who was the franchise quarterback. He's stuck with him. A lot of guys wouldn't have done that either because that's a huge risk. So, yes, I totally agree.
Yeah, it's interesting because, I still look at, as history fades a little bit on the Giants 80s teams, I still think that Belichick's role as a defensive coordinator on those teams is minimized because of the persona that Bill Parcells was. But Belichick was the rock on that team. He never wavered, as Parcells always, could flit off at any moment to take a different job. Belichick was the steady guy there. I wonder what the Giants' fortunes would have been in the early 90s had he become their coach rather than leaving, which, we both have regrets about that since he stiffed the Jets on the podium.
Yeah, that whole period of time was not a time for us to be talking about Bill Belichick. But, yeah, I mean, how much do people really think Parcells had to do with the 2-down lineman set we came out with in the Super Bowl against the Bills? I guess the only credit you give Parcells there was that he let Belichick do it, because that seemed crazy. After the first quarter, I said Thurman Thomas is going to have 2,600 yards in this game. But the great Marv Levy refused to run the ball. I mean, thank you.
You had the K gun back there. Why run the ball with the K gun?
We're not running the ball, but they only have 2 players at the line. It's
You know what's funny about
the craziest games I've ever seen
is there was a game when Eli was early on. He was playing his brother Peyton, and the Colts didn't run the ball much at the time, and the Giants were like, "All right, we're going to dare you to run the ball." And I think that the Colts just ran the ball right down the Giants' throat. And I think they had like 250 yards rushing. And the thing was that the Giants never adjusted. And Peyton Manning was smart enough to just go, I'm still going to run the ball. It's sort of like it was sort of that Patriots-Bills game from a couple of years ago where the Patriots had, I think, like 1 first down and just refused. Like they wouldn't throw the ball. They wouldn't do anything, but they won because it was in a snowstorm or something.
I believe that was a Mac Jones masterpiece as well. I think it was.
So I got derailed because of the discussion with the Patriots, but I was going to bring this up because this is another thing that I saw earlier this week on Good Morning Football. So they were going to the list of 4,000-yard passers for every team. And, we know that the Giants had a recent one in Eli Manning. We've been talking about Justin Fields. But for the Jets, Novak, can you name the Jets' last 4,000-yard passer?
Oh, I guess Vinny?
Yeah, that would be my guess.
Broadway Joe.
Oh. Are you kidding?
No, you got to go all the way back to Broadway Joe.
Huh.
So
I'm shocked. I thought maybe if it wasn't Vinny, I would have said Kenny O'Brien. But wow, Broadway Joe is the last 4,000 yard. That's pathetic.
I kind of thought we were going back away, but I agreed with you, Novak. Vinny popped into my head immediately. He had back-to-back, like, really good years.
I would have thought Pennington, but I don't remember Pennington didn't have a huge arm, but he did have a couple great seasons. So I was like,
Pennington threw like a balloon ball. There's no way he threw for 4,000 yards. I loved him. He was gritty, but no, I wouldn't have gone there. But I'm surprised it's not Vinny.
So better question: who's the last Bears quarterback to throw for 4,000 yards?
Never been one.
Bingo.
Yeah, that's
never been one. They're the only team in the NFL never have had a 4,000-yard passer.
I was gonna guess like, was it Sid Luckman or somebody like that? But
Not even the amazing Justin Fields.
yeah, well, I mean that seems like it's on tap. Justin Fields
Sexy.
will have to play 4 seasons before he throws for 4,000 yards.
So some of the news from around the league: Ezekiel Elliott still unsigned. Delvin Cook did sign with the Jets. DeAndre Hopkins. What?
He did?
Did he not? Oh, maybe he didn't.
He didn't. I had heard the rumor that he was about to. He's in the building, but he has not quite yet signed.
Okay, I thought he.
I kind of thought that earlier when you mentioned it, but there seemed to be a lot of news today, so I thought maybe I'd missed it.
No, then I'm jumping the gun. DeAndre Hopkins signed with the Titans after trying to get other offers. I think they never came. So the Titans are actually an interesting team for me to watch in the preseason because I don't know if Tannehill's going to be the guy. I mean, they drafted Levis. They have the quarterback from Liberty from last year who was Malik Willis. Yeah. And I think he might be on the way out in his second year. So I mean, what are they going to do at quarterback? But now they have DeAndre Hopkins. So it's interesting to see where some of these guys are going. And as we start to ramp up in the next few weeks, where I start thinking about fantasy football, I will see all the roster moves because I still don't know the depth charts on every team. And
yeah.
I still think of guys as being starters. I mean, Tony Pollard and Tony Pollard didn't get the franchise tag. Either did Josh Jacobs in Oakland or LA. So I mean, running backs, they're just not getting paid.
Las Vegas.
What did I say? LA. Oakland, LA.
Oakland, LA, Vegas.
Yeah.
Back to Oakland, LA.
You might see the Titans. I liked that quarterback Levis, whatever, from Kentucky that they drafted. I liked him coming out of this draft. So maybe they turned to him after week 7 or something when they're 2-5. I don't think that team's going to be any good. And you guys probably dealt with this. I would imagine because you're on the Giant boards and fan sites and everything else. How many people were screaming to get DeAndre Hopkins? Who wants that guy?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, come on. He's the Julio Jones of 2023 on the downside of his career. He's a cancer. I wanted no part of him.
Yeah. Well, and I think you're right. I mean, there were a lot of Giant fans that did want Hopkins, and I'm thinking, there's only so much money to go around after you sign Jones. You had to sign Thomas, which everyone was thinking about. Barkley's getting some money this year. We still have a couple other guys I want to lock up. Xavier McKinney would be good to re-sign, but where are you going to give money to DeAndre Hopkins? Have him come in and he'd be a distraction almost on the level of Beckham, I think, on the Giants in a market like New York.
Yeah, without the talent of Beckham. D-Hop's a great player, but yeah, I wanted no part of that.
Hopkins when he's healthy is probably better than Beckham in his current state now. I don't think
as
Beckham's
they said currently.
Yeah.
I thought you were talking about Beckham when he was a distraction to the Giants.
Oh yeah.
I mean, he was outstanding. He was an outstanding distraction. But yeah,
kicking nets. You guys got pet peeves tonight? I think you already touched upon them and hinted to it. So I'll start with Novak on the pet peeves.
So my pet peeve on behalf of Cardone is Rodgers is just annoying, but I won't go there. My pet peeve, honestly, and we've texted about this, NFL contracts in general. Like, I am doing my research trying to understand how signing bonuses work and why do you report the total contract value when it's really all that counts is the money that's guaranteed, and they restructure the player's contract after they don't hit incentives and everything else. It feels to me like these contracts are the annoying guy that you graduated college with, and when he got his first job, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna make $200,000. No, your base salary is 30, and if you sell 700 insurance plans, you're gonna get $200,000. It's the same thing. That you're not making. Even Justin Herbert signed for 262. It's not. It's 218 because that's the guaranteed money. I don't. This. In my mind, the contracts are so convoluted. I can't understand it. And maybe I'm just not, that's not what I'm, good at, which I would agree. But come on, they make no sense to me. And I'm so annoyed by how they put these things out there, how they're going to restructure. Everything changes. There's loopholes. There's all these different ways that they get around this stuff. It should just be very simple. You get 200 million to spend. You make 7 million. Now you got 193 left. Like, on to the next guy. Why are all these things going on? So my pet peeve is these annoying contracts that I just don't understand.
You know, and it's funny because some teams, they will talk about being in cap hell, and yet you'll see them sign like 3 guys, and you're like, well, how did they do that? And then they talk about restructuring these guys, but signing bonuses get amortized over the length of the contract, and it becomes fuzzy math. Meanwhile, the Giants a couple years ago, they couldn't sign people midway through the year. They actually were playing under the roster limit because they had no money left to sign, like just a guy to replace another guy that was injured. The gift of Gettleman.
Played under the roster limit. That's awesome. I remember this going back to like when the Cowboys were good. Because you remember back then, like anytime a player became available, of course, for all time, every Giants fan ever knows, we got to get that guy, we got to get Dion. And so like, well, the Giants have no money under the cap. And then here's the Cowboys who have Pro Bowlers at every position. They had Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, Troy Aikman, and they're like, oh yeah, we're bringing Dion in. Who's Haley? Charles Haley.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, I don't understand why it's like the salary cap didn't apply to them. And I'm not picking on the Cowboys in general. There were other teams, but I think it must have been different back then where if a player wanted to go to a team, that team could make it happen. It just, didn't really matter who else they were paying.
I think about 2 years ago, I think the Rams were that team. They kept adding guys, Miller and all these people. Like, I'm thinking, how are they adding yet another star player to this team? Now, I get they're in salary cap hell right now. Fine, I guess. I would assume they are. But do you remember they were adding player after player after player, and no idea how they did it. None.
Yeah.
They're in such salary cap hell. Their coach threatened to retire because he knows he's going to have a shitty year.
I got to get out of here. Got no money. The other thing, the other angle on that, Novak, is how fans think they understand the salary cap. It's so frustrating to
so annoying.
Hear people like, you see them on a website, they're just parroting some shit they heard.
Oh, they go to Sport Track or whatever, and they go, look, here's what it is. They do a screenshot, and then all of a sudden they're experts on the cap.
Yeah, they're cap experts. Yeah.
The Jet fans were doing that with DeAndre Hopkins, and I was getting so frustrated because they were saying, just get him, find a way. It's not that easy.
Yeah.
You want it, and in the next sentence, you want to sign Quinnen Williams to $32 million a year, whatever it was. Like, that's not how it works.
There's
you can't
no
just keep
understanding.
signing these. You can't just find a way.
That actually bleeds pretty well into my pet peeve, which is sort of related a little bit, but it's more on the fan side of it. Like I just kind of spilled the beans there. It's just like everyone is just sign everybody. Just immediately sign everybody. And they have, this is the gist of mine. They have no idea. These people who are just screaming at the top of their lungs or typing in all caps or whatever people do these days, they have absolutely zero understanding of negotiations. Just none. The day they went from the first contract Barkley turned down until, the day before yesterday, screaming to just sign him. Just give him. Why aren't we just giving him what he wants? I'm like, I would love to buy a car off you guys, or just, is there any way just that you could sell me something, or you would buy something off me? I would love to negotiate with you people. There's a seat at our poker table for you. As a matter of fact, they just immediately fold. And as Scott spelled out very well in the beginning, I mean, if the Giants were run by the fans, if the Giant organization were run by the fans of the team, my God, I can't imagine what Barkley would have $180 million guaranteed.
But what's funny is
lifetime contract.
It depends on the player, and it's so variable. Like when the Giants signed Leonard Williams, the former Jet, there are people screaming, we're competing with ourselves. We're bargaining against ourselves. Why are we paying this man so much money? And then the guy goes out and he's not even arguably, he is the best defensive player on the team for 2 years. And fans are still complaining about the amount of money they're giving him. It's like, well, you have a bad team. The way to get better from a bad team is to get better players. You have to spend money to get better players.
What do you think we're going to do? I mean, it's the lack of foresight that fans have into these contracts. And Scott and I went through a lot of arguments with this online and in person when the Giants gave Eli $100 million. And it wasn't even at that time, it fit right in line. Now, a lot of people said, oh yeah, Eli makes more than Tom Brady. Like Eli's better than Tom Brady. And we're like, just wait until Tom Brady renegotiates. Like Tom Brady's working on a 6-year-old contract or something. Chill out. Within like 2 years of Eli signing that contract, he was like the 7th highest paid quarterback in the NFL, and his contract looked like a complete bargain. I mean, you just got to let these contracts play out sometime. You can't compare one person who just signed a contract today and how much they're making to someone whose last contract negotiation was 4 years ago. The market changes. I mean, and it was going to work the opposite as we talked about earlier for running backs. It's going to go the other way.
100%.
But it'll be the same thing. I mean, whoever's going to sign Dalvin Cook is going to get him on kind of the cheap. And there's other quarterbacks in the NFL who will probably be who aren't near as talented as Dalvin Cook, who will be making 3 times what Dalvin Cook makes because they're on an old contract. People, they can't see. There's no awareness of anything but the moment right here in front of their face. They're like everyone's like goldfish, right? Isn't that what they say? Goldfish have like a 30-second memory.
Yeah.
It's a Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
I would say to build off of that, Mike, because we talked about this. It's such a great point. The obsession with the exact fans you're talking about with the backup quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had Jets fans get Ryan Tannehill to be the backup. What? How about just go and get Pat Mahomes? Why stop there?
Why are you stopping at Tannehill? You're aiming low.
Well, and I have a conundrum with the Giants situation because we have Tyrod Taylor as a backup. And really, what you want in a backup is a guy that's dependable and can come in a pinch. Tyrod Taylor, he might turn his ankle running onto the field just to take the first snap. So it's what?
If I see one more article say the Giants have the best backup quarterback in football, I might throw a monitor through a window. He stinks. He stinks. Oh, well, yeah, but the last time he was a starter, the team was 7-0 or something. That's like 6 years ago now. I mean, that is really getting on. And even then, it wasn't him. Everyone watching football knows it wasn't him. He was on who was that? Buffalo he was on? But he had that good record. Yeah, not a pretty good team. But yeah, and then every time we have had to lean on him, he gives us like 3.5 quarters.
Well,
Tyrod Taylor appears to be hurt.
If you remember, he was the quarterback in San Diego when Herbert was drafted, and literally he didn't even take the field the first game. He got like an injection or something that stabbed him in the kidney or something. He was out, and Herbert comes in immediately and plays. When he does come in for Jones after Jones got injured the last time, he lasted 2 series.
Yeah,
and then he went out with a concussion.
Yeah,
like Glennon.
So this guy we're talking about right now is, if you Googled best backup quarterback in the NFL, you'd probably 5 or 6 articles would be about Tyrod Taylor, or he'd be included in an article about backup quarterbacks. I mean, I don't think GMs think that way, but if it's true, the Giants should have him on the trade block, because if we could get anything for that guy, I mean, just like when Eli was here, just like Scott will tell you, when you have a quarterback who you think is the guy and not just a guy filling the seat, if that guy goes down, your season's done. It doesn't matter if we have Tyrod Taylor or Mike Glennon. They both were exactly going to provide the same thing. Tyrod Taylor may have looked a little better doing it, but it's going to end up in 7 of 8 losses. Losses in 7 of 8. It doesn't matter.
Did you guys watch that series Quarterback?
Yes.
I didn't, but I've heard cool things about it. I'm afraid to watch it because someone said I might come away liking Kirk Cousins if I watched it.
You
You
will.
probably will like Kirk Cousins, and you'll
Yeah.
still be scratching your head about Marcus Mariota.
Yeah. Although he was in it for about 5% of the time, but,
Yeah.
but nonetheless.
But still head scratching.
Yeah.
That was a great. It's been renewed for a second season, which will be interesting because it'll be this will be the next thing other than Hard Knocks. Like, what is my quarterback going to be featured on this?
Yeah.
What's going to happen
Oh
here?
God.
Oh God. You know who's going to be on that next year.
He's probably already pissed. Maybe they told him he can't be on both.
Uh,
That's why he signed the second year and took a pay cut, Novak.
uh,
Wants to be on quarterbacks next year. Oh, this is gonna be a fun season. Watching the Jets win and Novak still trying to hate Aaron Rodgers while simultaneously loving him. It's gonna be amazing.
I hated his post game celebration after they won.
Yeah. What a jerk.
Why is he partying with Jason Aldean?
why are you going to dark room after a loss to the Patriots?
Why is he clipping his nails at the podium?
Oh,
It's got to be better than Zach Wilson, though.
yes,
It is.
100%. Yes, no doubt. Come on.
So my pet peeve is it actually will apply more when we get into a couple more episodes from now, but the amount of focus that fans put on preseason games every year, it bugs the shit out of me. Like they'll be like, hey, this guy just scored 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter of a game. We got to put him on the roster.
Yeah.
And he's playing really in a game that would be the equivalent of James Madison versus, the Citadel or something.
Yeah.
I mean, you got scrubs playing scrubs. And this goes to Mike's point about fans' awareness. Fans' awareness is very low on what the actual practicalities of the NFL are, whether it comes to contracts or it comes to just perception. Coaches, if you talk to them, they put much more emphasis into joint practices than they do the preseason games. Basically, by the time they put someone out there on a preseason game, they're putting their guys out there that they want to show and have exposure to. So in case they get waived or something, another team might take a waiver on them. And they just want to get these guys some playing time and get the hell off the field. They don't care if they win a lot of times, or if they do, it's more of there's a motivation behind it. They don't play the starters hardly anymore. I mean, people talk about the emphasis on preseason games, but I think last year Mahomes played 2 series total. I think Aaron Rodgers played a series. I think even Daniel Jones played 2 series. It wasn't anything that was substantial. And yet we go into these games, and by preseason week 2, you're going to hear fans screaming about some scrub at the bottom of the roster who had a nice tackle or a nice hit. And why aren't we keeping him? Why'd we just cut him in the first round of cuts? This is the worst move ever.
Well, you remember the Snoopy Bowl last year. We had Trevler and Davis Webb gunslinging it out at the end of the fourth quarter, and both fan bases were like, that should be our backup. I mean, I don't.
Backup.
Right, again, the obsession with the backup.
Davis Webb had a hell of a preseason last year, and I think he retired after last year.
Isn't he coaching now or something?
I think he's coaching.
That really, that statement right there tells you everything you need to know about the preseason. If Davis Webb's performance last year in the preseason did not earn him a spot on the Giants roster, then what the hell is preseason for? And I'm not even saying he should have been on the roster. I'm not going to be that guy. I'm saying the Giants organization and talent evaluation staff knew something way different than what we were seeing, which is the case 99.9% of the time. I've been watching football steadily, including the preseason and mostly the Giants, since like 1977. I've watched a lot of preseason football. There is one guy that I can recall in all that time who was probably not going to make the roster, made a splash in preseason, made it to the team, and ended up being a star. That's Victor Cruz. That's happened exactly one time.
Yep.
To look for that to happen even from year to year is insane.
The Jets had one too, around the same time, a little bit before. Wayne Corbett.
Corbett was that guy?
From
He was that
Hofstra.
guy. Yep. So yeah,
Yep.
I mean, you're right. It can happen, but it is so rare.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
right?
and now with less preseason games, it's not even going to happen that much anymore.
No. I mean, they're just playing those guys so the other guys don't get hurt. I mean, we all know it. All we care about is to get to the season without injuries, and the preseason is just a joke. But the reality is, we're all like sick and tired of baseball and everything else that's on TV right now. I'm ready
Right.
for football to start, and I'll be in front of the TV watching
Oh, I'll watch
preseason
every
football
minute.
like all the other idiots out there.
Preseason football hasn't quite gotten to the level of the Pro Bowl for me. Matter of fact, the Snoopy Bowl last year was one of the best games of the year combined,
It
regular or
was.
preseason. That was an awesome football game.
I will say this about the preseason. I go in it and there's one goal that I have in mind is when our starters are playing against the opposing team starters, I look for them to see how they play. And that becomes that's the biggest indicator that I've seen to the regular season. It doesn't matter if you win the game because you could be up 14-0 after your starters leave, and then the scrubs come in and they lose 28-0, or same thing going on. Your starters might get blown out, but then your scrubs win, and you're like, all right, we won the game, but your starters look like crap. And
Yeah,
the way the starters look is the way it tends to go for the regular season.
I agree with that a lot, Scott. And it's the one thing we lose when we're losing the preseason game, the extra preseason game, is that continued exposure to the starters that we get to see. Because I'll tell you, I've seen things in preseason games, if I'm just being completely honest, from the starters, never, I don't care about anyone else, that have made me go, oh boy, that doesn't look good. And that's always like shown up in the regular season later. Like, sometimes it's just a blip. Sometimes it's like, I always rationalize, they played 2 series. Anyone can have bad 2 series and win a game easily. It's not that big a deal, but it creeps in. And some of the things you see out there, all of a sudden you realize, wow, these guys, for example, the last decade of the Giants, these guys actually can't block anybody. I was rationalizing that in the preseason, but now we're shooting with live bullets and these guys can't block anybody.
And I think it was evident to me early on last year in 2 preseason games where the starters actually did start the game. They had great opening drives that led to either touchdowns or they extended third downs, which is just funny to say, but in the past 5 years before that, you'd get to 2nd and 10 and you had no hope of converting that. 3rd and 8, no hope of converting that. You're converting that in a preseason game. It extended into the regular season, and we saw how the Giants did after that. But yeah, that's how I always look at the apples to apples version rather than when our scrubs are playing against their scrubs, because basically, could it be our 3rd string against their 5th string or vice versa? It doesn't really matter,
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, I know we've been through years like the Joe Judge and the seasons just before that where the Giants don't gain significant yards on first down. It's like warm up the punter. We're not getting out of this right here. Just run a couple quarterback sneaks and punt. Let's get the hell out of here.
We're going to break down the Giants Bengals preseason coming up.
I don't think we play the Bengals this year, so
Okay.
that's good for me. And I also don't have work events that I can go locally to. I could go virtually and probably get smashed in front of a computer, but not locally.
I was going to bring that up when Scott was saying the most important thing to me of a preseason game I was going to be is whether or not the Bengals are playing their starters.
You guys got anything else tonight?
No, man. If we're gonna start doing these again, I guess I'll have to catch up with everything. Everything you and Novak said in like the first 15 minutes was news to me. Oh, cool. We signed Andrew Thomas. We will.
But I will reiterate what I said earlier about Joe Shane. I mean, I feel like we have a top-notch GM who isn't just making moves that are splashy, but he's also doing the moves like Barkley, where you don't have to give Barkley any more money. The guy's already playing on the tag. But doing so shows some good faith, and maybe that pays off, or maybe it buys you some equity in the locker room.
I think what Shane did was in this offseason. I mean, I guess you could say he got a little lucky with Barkley, but something tells me with this guy that this not the plan the whole time, but offering Barkley that safety net was one of the best moves that I can think of. I think this has been a masterclass in NFL GM, and it really would. And it's funny because we at the same time we have a coach who I feel is an NFL head coach, and I'm so embarrassed right now. And this is going to happen, several more times before I die, that I ever got behind Joe Judge, because comparing who he is in the buffoonery and the fake, you can't fake rah-rah. You just can't. And I mean, Scott and Cardone and I think we're so desperate just for some kind of difference and change that I think we all bought in a little bit. But I guarantee not one of them any more than I did. I promise. But I look back on that now, just with one season with Shane and Daboll, and I feel like what a fool I was. This is what a professional NFL organization looks like. And we would start every one of these podcasts. This will be what, Scott, our fourth year?
Fourth season, yeah.
So we started the first 3 seasons by saying very similar things in the beginning. We would say, we just want to resemble an NFL franchise this year. The wins and losses don't matter as much as just not being buffoons, not being laughing stocks. And right now to look back and again, I said in our last podcast, I don't think this team this year wins as many games as they did last year. I think there's a lot of outside factors this year that complicate that. I still think they can make the playoffs, but I do think they'll be a better team. I know that's kind of hard maybe for some people to wrap their head around. I think we'll have improved from last year, but I can't find a ton of wins on that schedule. But it doesn't dissuade me because I feel like my team is in really good hands.
Well, and I had to laugh earlier because Novak brought up crazy-eyed Gase. And it's funny because, I as an outsider, I laughed at him, where he's like got the eyes that are wide open and everything else. Well, when Joe Judge showed up on the podium for the first time, he was such a departure from Shermer that I'm like, This guy's got his act together. This guy's got a plan. And then he was a perfect guy who had a plan but couldn't execute it. And I have no idea. Honestly, I don't know the competency of Joe Judge as a coach. I after 2 years of him playing or him leading the Giants, I still don't know, is he competent or not?
Yeah, I don't know that.
What I do know is that he talks a lot more game than he actually brought to the field.
That's exactly what I meant.
Whereas Daboll and Shane go about their business like very workmanlike. They don't make predictions. They don't make any bluster. They just go, they show up, and the work they put in translated to wins.
Think about, I'm sorry, Scott, go ahead.
No, that was it. That was
Think about Joe Judge's first training camp, his first year, and Daboll's first training camp, his first year. Joe Judge was the story of that training camp. Making them do extra laps and getting down in the mud with them, but it was all about him. It was all about him and his big grandiose speeches about culture change. That I think that's all they were. I never saw any real effort to change the culture. Just Joe Judge standing in front of people saying we're changing the culture. Like, how is that happening? I didn't see that. Daboll's first year, there was some extra attention on him because he's a new coach. But he wasn't the main focus of every camp story.
Yeah.
I think, when you look at this year, it's going to be fascinating, I think, for both the Jets and the Giants. I think the NFL and basic fans are going to be very fascinated by the Jets. Clearly, Aaron Rodgers, New York, the Sauce Gardner on, every friggin' Monday night possible. But I find the Giants to be incredibly interesting. As an outsider, don't know them nearly the way you guys do. If I'm looking from the outside, I could make a case they're going to be 5-12. I can make a case they're going to be 12-5.
Yeah,
I really have no idea, and I think that is the fun part about it, because pretty much every other team, you can probably say 2 or 3 wins of what they're going to end up being. I have no clue with the Giants. You probably obviously know better than me, but could they go 12-5? Wouldn't shock me.
Which will make our bet this year even more interesting.
We got to work on that. I have some ideas for the Jet Giant game. I'm thinking a podcast on YouTube where you guys are wearing jet green if the Jets win. That's all I'm saying.
Man, I'll have to find a jersey in my size on pretty short notice.
I think I could find a Corbett jersey.
Give me a hat. I can give you a hat.
I'd wear a Corbett.
I can do a hat. Although if you see my head too.
Number 80, Wayne Corbett.
I would like if I had my choice of Jet jerseys for all time, I would have an Altoon jersey.
Oh, I love Altoon. And they're bringing those jerseys back, by the way.
I saw that.
The 79 to 89 Jets, because they were great. Other than the sack exchange, those were pretty bad years, but they're bringing those jerseys back. Which I like the throwback jerseys. I do.
Altoon as a Jet was much better blind than Cedric Jones was as a Giant.
Was Altoon blind?
No, Wesley Walker was blind.
Oh, I was gonna say
Wesley Walker was much better blind than
One-eyed Wesley was we call them, but yes, Wesley Walker was blind in one eye, not Altoon. Altoon had a ton of concussions.
He was a concussion guy.
Altoon from Wisconsin, right?
Yes.
All right, I got that part right.
Altoon, who scored a touchdown almost as the clock ran out on a terrible Jets team to knock the Giants from playoff contention.
That's
in
right. We did do
1988.
88. That's correct.
Yep. Heartbreaking. I thought we had a really good team that year.
All right, guys. Like I said, next week we're going to play basically a montage to our pet peeves. But hit us up on Twitter at @angry_3. We got a lot of stuff in store for this year. Really excited. Year 4, like Mike said. I'm excited for this year. I'm excited for you guys being part of this, and I'm glad to be part of this.
Yeah, we're fired up. I think everyone can tell we have a better production value this year.
Our number of curse words went down precipitously because Cardone is not here.
It's funny because he enables them too. Because I had one on deck, and I thought, it doesn't seem like we're doing that tonight, so I backed it down.
You guys.
I'm excited as well. It's going to be a great year. Thanks for bringing me along. This is still a Giants podcast. So everyone out there knows it's a Giant podcast. A little color of Jets. It's like a Jet team playing in Giant Stadium. What's that like?
Yeah, that's a good analogy. I like it.
Yeah.
Scott's a Jets team and playing in Giant Stadium. Yeah.
Pretty much.
But we love his perspective. I love it.
That's right.
Oh, it's awesome. Yeah, I mean, who knows where this goes? I mean, does this branch off for Novak to do the 3 Angry Jet fans? Who knows?
I'll tell you what, the dick can make a lot of possibilities happen for people. All right, we'll see you next time. We'll be back when the preseason games start.
See ya.
Yeah, I'm on it.